Hey everybody, Quantum here, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at a new concept in Amber Ruby Mufasa, and that is utilizing the new Goofy Legendary in Amber from Reign of Jafar, and it's going to be going up against my Ruby Amethyst 8.1 deck. This is a deck that's basically focused around Shark, Queen's Castle, and the new Hades, Ruthless Tyrant. And it's been doing pretty good so far, but it does definitely have a weakness into what is probably the strongest deck in the format in Emerald Steel Discard. Actually, both of these decks kind of do. That being said, though, Emerald Steel Discard does need to see like very specific cards in order to turn their discard into advantage, which I've talked about already in the Emerald Steel video. And it's not a complete blowout match. You do have a chance, especially because of the Queen's Castle, or Library if you opted to play that instead. But in this matchup, we're going to focus on, I guess you can call this a more mid-range kind of matchup. So I end up going first in this one, and we go turn 1, Palace Guard, turn 2, Queen of Hearts, and that's really good because it's 2 1/4 bodies. And in this matchup in particular, there's really nothing my opponent has that's going to target the Palace Guard, which means the Vanish ability basically is non-existent, which is really good here. They go Mulan into a Mother Gothel, and I forgot for a moment about like Mulan shifting, but definitely should be very mindful of that because it could definitely blow up your entire board if you just play into that shift. So you'd be very careful with that. But the opponent here, again, very strong line into a potential Rapunzel, because similar to how they have no counterplay into my Palace Guard, Ruby Amethyst, if you're not playing Teeth and Ambitions, with most lists are not, you have no counterplay into these characters that have the damage on them, which means the Rapunzel on turn 4 is very threatening. So we end up exerting crap to sing Friends, and we're going to draw 2. This is an awkward sequence because you could argue this may not be correct, given that Mother Gothel, being a 3/4 on the board right now, likely gets healed by Rapunzel next turn and then can challenge into the crab and out it for free. But I just opted to sing Friends anyways. We end up paying 3 to brawl away the Gaston, similar to what I did in the other game, because again, I recognize Gaston as a big threat. We quest up to 5 and pass turn here. The opponent on 5 cards is going to be able to ink, and I believe they do deploy the Rapunzel, getting the draw 3. But like I mentioned before, like, or not before, but like, well, I guess before, in the last matchup I played against Amber Ruby Mufasa, I mentioned how, this traditionally was actually a pretty good matchup for Amber Ruby, because a card like Rapunzel netting you 3 cards right away versus a card like Rabbit Bounce, which has to net you 2 cards upon the play and the bounce. Like it's like much slower, and therefore Amber Ruby can just keep the pressure on you and just outgun you, which is why it's kind of a rough matchup for Ruby Amethyst. But now I don't really care because I can match your tempo, and I know that in the top end I have a card that's arguably better than Rapunzel in terms of its card draw in the Hades Ruthless Tyrant. Again, Rapunzel is still the better card because it costs 4 and it's inkable, but Hades in terms of its draw engine is definitely like, up there. It's an immediate draw 2. It's and then if it lives, it's just an insane amount of advantage. Like if that thing quests, I've said before, like you basically win the game. So they did exactly what I thought. The Mother Gothel traded into the crab, so I lost my 3-cost Singer, and I have to use Queen of Hearts here in order to take out the Mother Gothel. I do get damage on my Queen of Hearts, so yeah, so it ends up proccing to a 4/4, and this could have been a very dangerous exchange because I'm looking at it right now and I'm just thinking it through. I'm like, oh yeah, and sometimes you do forget this, but generally I do catch it. Like the trading sequence back and forth, the Rapunzel with 4 damage on it when it crashes into the Queen of Hearts to take it out, right? Because my Queen of Hearts only needed 1 more point of damage. It puts 4 damage on the Rapunzel. If they had another Rapunzel follow up, they would have drawn another 3 cards, and that then could be a problem. Um, because while we both play decent top end cards, the Mufasa deck generally plays better removal, like Tremaine's Medusas and Maleficent Dragons, whereas our top end is like Maui Sharks. So our Sharks will get absolutely eaten by a Maleficent Dragon if we attempt to play it. So we have to be very careful of that. So despite going first, you can see my opponent is actually in the advantageous board state here. They've got the better characters on board. They've got more cards in hand. Are we going to be able to claw our way back despite being on the play for this matchup? We draw for turn and we got the Iago, but no Peter Pan Shadow in sight, so this is a little rough. We're going to go ahead and sing Friends with the Genie. You can argue if this is the right play or not, or if I should just continue to quest. The opponent is on 5 now, but they're not turning anything sideways. Or sorry, they would be turning stuff sideways, or they did, but then it got readied back up by the Goofy, and here you can see the value of the Goofy being able to ready up any damaged characters and remove damage from them. So I'm thinking, okay, what's the best play here? It's probably not deploy Shark, but we're going to go ahead and quest with the Palace Guard, okay, and we do indeed opt to be prepared because that Goofy resetting or re-readying cards and healing them is just going to be a bit of an issue here. So I'll put the opponent on, go ahead, play out a new board, and I'll deal with it that way. And they put out something that's, in my opinion, a little underwhelming, right? A Vanellope, which is basically a Pegasus clone and a 3/1 evasive, and a Sisu, which is kind of bulky right now because I got a lot of cards in my hand, well, or a decent amount of cards. So we're going to aim to try to, I don't want to say dump our hand, but we'll definitely try to play out what we can. The Pirate's Life here, you could argue that inking it is a mistake because it's definitely a card that can help you clutch out a game. So in hindsight, I should probably have kept that in hand, but this Sisu is only a 3/4 now. Well, now it's a 4/4. The Tremaine comes down. I banish my Diablo, so I draw a card for it, and then I draw for turn after they've quested with the Sisu up to 7. And now I have a few options. Crab my Elsa and just straight up take out that exerted Sisu, right? You know, there is a potential that the opponent is playing the shift Sisu, but it wouldn't be good here yet. So even if they did have it, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. We're gonna opt to ink and deploy the Maui Shark. No Peter Pan Shadow on board, but this will stop the opponent from turning their thing sideways because I at least have a Friends in the discard. They drop yet another Tremaine, and so I'm going to go ahead and dump my hand here now and start putting the pressure on with Shark. It's only one Laura turn, so it's definitely manageable for the opponent. They're not on a huge clock, or they are on a huge clock, very long time before I can potentially win the game. So they're in the driver's seat now, right? Because my top decks haven't been the greatest, but at least the Shark on board prevents them from questing. The issue is they're at 7, so they're going to go to 8 next. That's only one away from a Maleficent. I'm not fearful of a Medusa. I'm not really fearful of a Tremaine at least, or another Tremaine at this stage because I just banish the Diablo again. So there's no way the opponent plays another Tremaine. They don't play Medusa if they have it in hand because Medusa, again, can only target the Diablo. So, yeah, it's an interesting situation. They're going to end up playing out the Rhea, though. And that could be a problem because they can quest with Tremaine, ink, and then ready it back up. So now they can kind of keep up with my questing pressure. But they definitely want to deal with this Diablo. So let's see what they do here. I mean, you could also just forgo dealing with the Diablo and quest with the Tremaine and then ready it back up. But they definitely don't want to do that. So instead they go for Mother Gothel into Julieta. So no Rapunzel. Julieta only going to be able to draw one card. Puts a body on board. Don't really like Julieta, but that's just me. We top deck a Hypnotic Strength. We play 2 of this in the deck. We're going to just play it for the fact that we can draw a card. We also gain a lore off of the Maui Half Shark there, and we draw into what I would think is like the busted nuts here. So if my opponent is like, oh, I don't want to turn anything sideways, I'll just be like, I'll make you turn stuff sideways. So we quest with the Diablo, and then we hard cast, because we have to, it's an action, the Magical Maneuvers, and we opt to bounce back the 1-drop Diablo in order to exert the opponent Rhea there. And because we challenged, we're going to opt to get back Friends, exert the Maui Hero to all to sing Friends, and draw 2. You could argue that the correct play was bringing back the Magical Maneuver since I only play 1. And I could keep that in hand, threatening to play it again next turn and getting extra value off my Shark. But I could also bring it back to hand and then play it, bounce my Shark to reset the damage, exert something else like a Tremaine, and then use my Maui Hero to all on board to out the Tremaine, and then redeploy the Shark next turn. Ideally, you know, you'd want to deploy Shark with the Peter Pan Shadow. And if I had a Peter Pan Shadow instead of a Crab in my hand, I might have done that play, because then my opponent might be opted to say, okay, you've bounced back your Shark to reset the damage. I can turn some of my stuff sideways now and trying to keep up with you or catch up to you. And then I hit them with the Shark Peter Pan Shadow Finder, and then the Shark's able to rush in right away. They thought they were safe because Shark wasn't on the board if I went for this play, and they would turn their stuff sideways. But I don't know. I think my friend is a better player than that, so he probably wouldn't fall for that anyways. Speaking of which, the opponent ends up playing a Wreck-It Ralph, which I was like, okay, that's not good for me for sure. Gets back a Rapunzel, and because he took back a princess, he's able to draw 2, and now he's got a bunch of big bodies and heavy questers on board. So I'm in trouble. By the way, critical misplay, which I don't know if you want to categorize it as a misplay or just like forgotten, but because you have to gain the lore off the Maui. I did not gain the extra lore off of the friends. I did gain it off the hypnotic strength, and I think I did gain it off the magical maneuvers, but off of the friends singing, I didn't gain the extra lore. So I should be at 18, but I'm not. So regardless, I'm just going to quest out with everything because I'm very close to game, and I'm putting the opponent on, you don't have B preps. And even if you did, I draw 3 between the Cusco and the double Diablo. So I deploy out the Diablo and the Crab and pass turn, putting my opponent on, you know, good luck dealing with this. Well, little did I know he did not need luck, because you'll see that he ends up inking a Surfer Stitch and deploying a big Sisu, which basically wipes out my win condition. Well, not my win condition, but like my winning of next turn, because all of the smaller characters here get banished. Queen of Hearts, double Diablo, and the Cusco here. So those will all go to the discard, and I will draw 3. The game was lagging. If you can see in the top right corner, my ping shows like 999. It's finally come back down, so now I will move everything to the discard. The draw only went through for 2 for some reason, even though you saw me clicking 3, and okay, just had to move something. That was, again, very, very strange. Unfortunate draws there in the Cusco double Peter Pan Shadow. All I need to see is an action to win the game, but like I said, I should be at 18, so technically this is still game right here. Quest with Crab, quest with the Maui Half Shark, and that's game. But, you know, we gotta own up to our errors here and say, like, okay, like, we forgot, so that's on us. We drop the Hades, put 2 damage on the Maui, and then draw 2 cards. Still no action. All I needed was a Brawl or a Friends, right? And I could have inked, you know, played out the Brawl or the Friends, and won the game off the 1 lore gain off of Shark. I have no actions to gain lore off of him with, so I'm in really, really, I don't want to say really, really deep trouble, but pretty, like, obviously, like, I'm going to lose the game if I don't see the cards that I need. So, which in this case was just an action. So here, you know, I turn things sideways. I go to 19. Again, should have been 20 if I was paying attention, because I would have gained the lore from the friends. The opponent reveals, yeah, like, no problem. I show him a hand. Triple Peter Pan Shadow was really unfortunate. 4 uninkables out of those 5 draws. And then the next card, of course, is the Brawl that I need, which I could have inked the Cusco, played the Brawl, won the game there too. But yeah, my friend technically ends up winning that one. But let me know what you think in the comment section below if you've made it this far. Thank you again for watching. Quantum is out.